I work up here because I love it up here. I'll be honest with you. I actually love working in Mercy. I love the patients I see up here. Obviously I loved the Army, and I loved the soldiers. I deployed 4 times, and so I have found kind of a similar love, though, for the folks up here in Iowa. I grew up on a dairy farm, so you all are just kind of like, kindred spirits to me, a lot of us. So that's why I come up here. People go, why do you come up here for 2 weeks a month? That and the fact that after I retired from the Army, my wife gave me an ultimatum after about a month, either get a job or a hobby. And so that's what I do. My big claim to fame in cocktail parties is Saddam Hussein's physician through the year 2005. Kept them alive so they could put them on trial and hang them. Still one of my best, some of my best work was back then. So he and I were tight. I'm going to talk about, kind of the number who said they never had a sleep problem. That's kind of the usual. Very few people can't say they never really had a sleep issue. I would tell you what I'm going to talk about today is kind of it's a take on 12 Days of Christmas because I try to make it interesting. I'm really going to be talking about what's called sleep hygiene, and which is basically what do we do ourselves that either makes us sleep better or not sleep so well. And I'm going to talk about what to do if you have insomnia, just some basic changes. Now, a lot of you will have heard some of this stuff. I see people every day, I've heard that, but I don't think they've quite heard the whole story. I'm kind of a Paul Harvey guy. It's like, well, here's the rest of the story about your TV. Here's the rest of the story about, whatever. So I'll give you kind of the rest of the story. The other thing is, I'm a big history buff. If I wasn't a physician, I certainly wasn't going to be a dairy farmer. No offense to anybody. But I would have been a historian probably, because I love history. So when I said 12 Days of Christmas, I'm like, well, where did that come from? And the first question that always popped into my mind, what is the first day of Christmas? If there's 12 days, when does it start? So I actually looked this stuff up, but I don't believe everything I read on the internet. But so I cross-reference and everything. Evidently, the first day of Christmas is actually Christmas Day. And then it goes on for 12 days after that. I did a little informal survey in my clinic. When's the 12 days of Christmas? Everybody thought it started 12 days before Christmas. It actually starts the day of Christmas. And then the other issue came up is, how did it all come about? And evidently, and again, this is a Catholic institution, so I can talk about religion. And I know, many of you may be Catholic and know the story I'm going to tell, but I was kind of like, where did this whole concept come from? And what really it is in the about 1300 through the early 1800s, Catholicism was actually outlawed in Great Britain. Because the Anglican Church was Protestant, had kind of taken over as the official religion of England and Great Britain. Issues continued. If you remember, Northern Ireland with the Irish Republican Army was a Catholic fighting the Protestants in Northern Ireland. But Catholicism was outlawed. And so the 12 Days of Christmas theoretically was a song that kind of came about in order to remind Catholics of the tenets of the Catholic religion. Does anybody know that? Because you could probably explain it better than I could. So I'm just learning this. So what I want to show you then is what the 12 Days of Christmas are. Let's see if this works. Where do I point it? Right, where do I point it to make it work?
Make sure it's turned on. I didn't want the battery to die.
Okay, turn it on. That's important. So, supposedly that is a partridge in a pear tree. I don't know what a partridge looks like, so I'm going to take the word for it. But basically, the first day of Christmas is to represent Jesus Christ, the Son of God. 2 turtle doves represent the Old and the New Testaments. Those are French hens. If there was ever a French hen, that's a French hen. 3 French hens represent faith, hope, and charity. The 4 Gospels, so 4 calling birds. Now it's interesting, there's calling, I-N-G. There's also some verses that call them callee birds, C-A-U-L-E-Y. I don't know what a callee bird is, but we'll call them calling. So 4 calling birds represent the 4 Gospels and the 4 evangelists. 5 golden rings are the first 5 books of the Old Testament. The 6 geese a laying are 6 days of creation. 7 swans of swimming are the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit or the 7 sacraments. 8 maids of milking is the 8 Beatitudes. 9 ladies dancing represent the 9 fruits of the Holy Spirit. 10 lords of leaping, the 10 commandments. And I freely admit, I'm a Methodist, my brother's a Methodist minister. I don't know what some of these things are, but just in case you're wondering what is that, I may not be able to answer it for you. 11 pipers piping are the 11 faithful apostles. And the 12 drummers drumming are the 12 points of doctrine in the Apostles' Creed. So there's a little history for you, something you may or may not have known. Now we're going to sing the song. No, I actually originally had planned to sing the song flipping through the pictures. So be glad I'm not. All right. So let's talk about, that picture didn't quite end up where it was supposed to be. But it was supposed to be, on the first day of Christmas, my sleep doc said to me, it's time to turn off that TV, and the computer, and the phone, and the iPad. The biggest issue I see when people come to see me because they're not sleeping well is electronics. Electronics are incredibly disruptive to sleep. Anything that has a screen, your TV, your phone, your iPad, your laptop, anything like that that has a screen, those are flashing lights. Flashing lights, they flash so fast, we see solid, but they are flashing. Flashing lights are incredibly stimulating to the brain, turn it wide awake. I tell folks, you may as well go to Vegas and stand on the strip, go ahead, head down to the club and stare at the disco ball a while, and then be transported back into your bed and fall asleep. It just doesn't happen. One of two things happen with the electronics. Some people will turn it off and then they'll get in bed and they'll lay there for a while. Typically they'll say, I lay there 20, 30 minutes before my mind has to kind of wind down. And that's because you've turned it on with the TV. And so that's what some people do. What's interesting is I have people that swear to me they got to have that TV on to fall asleep. And I'll be honest with you, that's just behavior. That's a behavior. That's not something your body needs. But what we know from sleep studies is when people fall asleep with the TV on, we know from looking at the brain waves that even though they may be out, snoring, whatever you're like, that person's asleep, their brain is wide awake. And the brain stays wide awake for up to an hour because it takes up to an hour for your brain to wind down from flashing light exposure. And so those folks are effectively losing an hour of sleep. So if they are like, I get 8 hours of sleep every night, why am I tired? I'm like, well, you're really getting 7 because you're losing that whole hour of sleep. And then some people have a mixture. They'll be up for 20, 30 minutes and then they lose a half hour of sleep. So when someone tells you about the electronics, it's just not about not having electronics in your bedroom, because that makes it easy to lay in bed and watch them, and then you train your body to lay in bed and watch it. But it's about actually giving yourself a break. And the official recommendations you read will all say 60 minutes. I'm a realist. If you can get yourself 30-minute break from the time you turn off your electronics until you get to bed, you may notice you fall asleep quicker and actually may feel even a little like you sleep a little bit better. So 30 minutes from the time you turn off those electronics, okay? Should I ask questions at the end or should I just do them now? What do y'all think at the end? Keep going? So that's electronics. Time to turn off the TV. And I'll be honest with you, everything I talk about here is hard. None of this is easy. I tell people all the time, this is hard work. Changing behavior is very hard.
What about listening to music?
Music's fine. Yeah, music's fine. Not talk radio, because then you tend to concentrate. Yeah. Music is fine. As long as you don't have your phone and playing with it to get the song you want. All right. Yeah, so obviously I messed up these slides so that the picture is going to cover something on the left-hand side every time. I don't know what that says. But on the second day of Christmas, my sleep doc, it says sleep. My sleep doc said to me, don't drink too much of that whiskey. Haha, made the rhyme. Or wine, or beer, or anything else. I don't begrudge anybody having a drink or two in the evening. That's not the point. Alcohol, as a baseline, is a depressant. When you drink alcohol, it actually makes you want to fall asleep. It can help you fall asleep in some cases. The breakdown products of alcohol. So after you've drank, that alcohol gets broken down in the liver. And one of the breakdown products of alcohol is actually acetaldehyde. Now, if that sounds familiar to formaldehyde, which we pick frogs in and stuff, that's because it is. It's a close cousin. So acetaldehyde, though, is actually a very powerful stimulant. it actually will disrupt your sleep and even wake you up in the hours after it's produced. So I say, I know none of you ever did this, had too much to drink, you kind of maybe passed out in your younger days, and then you felt like, boy, I was asleep, but then about 3-4 hours later, I was up and tossing and turning and all over the place. That's because of the stimulant effect of the alcohol. And so alcohol actually is a sleep disruptor, not something that helps you sleep. Now, like I said, I don't begrudge anybody having a drink or two. It's very patient dependent. There are some folks who will have one drink and it disrupts their sleep. There are other folks that'll have 3, 4, 5, and it's not an issue. But it's something to think about. So if suddenly you've had a bunch more to drink than typical and you're like, boy, I slept horrible last night, and now I have the headache too from the acetaldehyde, that's why, okay? Oh, the third day, I love those French guys. That is by far the best picture I've found. It says, don't forget to turn the lights off on that tree. This may seem like a no-brainer. When you go to bed, you want to have the lights turned off in your bedroom, okay? Seems like no-brainer. Everybody does that. No, I see people all the time where they leave the lights on at night while they try to sleep. Or they have a bright light in the hallway. Not talking about little night lights you plug in or anything. I'm talking about lights. The problem you have with light is this, is that before there was TV or electricity or even candles or anything, our body basically was designed such that when the sun went down and it started to get dim, it would actually, our eyes would sense it, send it to our brain. It would trigger the release of melatonin. Many of you have heard of melatonin. And then melatonin would actually make us start, trigger everything to fall asleep. If you close your eyes, you can see light, right? If you look at a light with your eyes closed, you see it. So what would happen is as we were sleeping and the sun came up, we would actually see that light through our eyes, and that would trigger a whole nother wake-up cycle. So if you have lights on at night, guess what you're doing? You're giving your body mixed signals. It's like, am I sleepy time or am I wake time? The body doesn't know. And so having significant lights on actually impacts your sleep because your body's kind of fighting this war in itself. Is this sleep or is this wake? What's really interesting is like very bright moonlight on full moon nights can do the same thing. I've had patients where they come in thinking they're werewolves. It's like, oh, I can't sleep with a full moon, and I'm kind of like, well, do you have your curtains open? Oh yeah, the room is full of moonlight. I'm like, well, close the curtains because that light alone is enough in some people to actually cause this kind of, am I awake or should I be sleeping? So I had to throw the tree in for the Christmas theme. So, I guess for safety, you always turn the lights off on your tree. Fourth day of Christmas, my doc said to me, pass on that ice and cream and brownie. Right before bed, at least. Okay? So I love brownies and ice cream, if you can't tell. Hence the Diet Coke. Basically what that's really saying is that you'll see a lot of times people talk about trying a warm glass of milk or maybe some cheese and nuts before bed to help kind of promote sleep. I guess that's true. I personally haven't had much luck for telling people, having them try that to help them fall asleep easier. But I can tell you what will keep you awake. The chunk of pie with a scoop of ice cream, chasing it down with a bottle of pop. I picked up that word, it's soda where I grew up. But not chase it down with a bottle of pop. Sugar is a powerful stimulant. That will wake you up and keep you awake. This is Red Bull and Monster drinks, all that is, they take a bag of sugar, dump it in, put some caffeine in there and throw some water in, and it's like, here's your Red Bull, okay? Those things are all just sugar and caffeine. And so sugar is a stimulant. Sugar can make it hard to fall asleep. It can make it hard to stay asleep. Okay? So give yourself a couple hours from that brownie and ice cream instead of right before you're going to bed. Yeah, brownie and ice cream, chase it with a whiskey, right? All right, fifth day of Christmas. My sleep doc said to me, make sure you watch all that caffeine. No brainer, right? Everybody knows that caffeine can keep you awake, right? That it's a stimulant, like I just talked about, it keeps you awake. What most people don't know is how long caffeine is actually active in your system. The recommendation is no caffeine after 2 p.m. Okay? 2 p.m. Wow. Yeah, I love it. Because it is long acting, it can have an effect on your sleep. Any caffeine that late afternoon, at dinner or whatever, all that's in play when it comes to impacting your ability to fall asleep. So the official recommendations are very clear that, based on studies, not just me or a bunch of people making this stuff up. 2 p.m. is the time you should have your last caffeinated beverage, okay? How many people actually drink caffeine after 2? Just out of curiosity. Yeah, that's about right. I mean, I do too. I'm bad. I'm a very bad patient. I'm a terrible patient.
How long is it active?
So, where was that?
I just wondered how long it's active.
So basically, caffeine can act up 8 to 12 hours actually after you drink it. And so again, there's some patient independence to that, but caffeine hangs around a long time. Yeah, I didn't do well with my slides today. I got some breaks there. 6th day of Christmas, my sleep doc said to me, come take a walk with me. I'm not going to get into how good exercise is for you, even though I love exercise physiology. I did a lot of that in the military. About how good exercise is for you and how much you need it for general health. What I do know is this, is that actually just doing some moderate walking in the evening can really help you fall asleep easier. And I tell folks, you don't have to do anything crazy. Just walk around the block. Take a 10, 15-minute leisurely walk around the block in the evening, before you're thinking about going to bed. That actually can really trigger some release of hormones and stuff in your body that will promote sleep and actually can help you sleep better. That used to be, don't ever exercise right before bed. Some of you may have heard that. Don't exercise in the evening. In August, actually, a great study came out that kind of has poo-pooed that whole thing. And actually, moderate exercise, even right before bed, probably is a sleep promoter and does not actually hurt your ability to fall asleep. So I know it's hard when it's 18 degrees outside, but just some moderate walking can help. All right, I've shifted gears a little bit. Those are sleep hygiene things. Those are all things I talked about that you can do to try to help set yourself up for success. I'm going now into, well, what if I can't fall asleep? What if I'm somebody that just has insomnia? I'm the person who gets into bed and I lay there awake and all I do is think about what I got to do tomorrow and, what's going on in my life and I worry or whatever. These are for the people who have trouble falling asleep, insomnia. Okay, how many people have some degree of insomnia, do you think? Yeah, it's pretty common. It's hard to believe. Actually, if you read a book and it says normal time to fall asleep, it's less than 5 minutes. How many people actually fall asleep in less than 5 minutes? I got the couple who've never had sleep problems, but other than that, everybody. Yeah. So I see very few people who fall asleep in less than 5 minutes, unless they are so sleep deprived they're exhausted and can't stay up. So basically, we all have some issues with insomnia, some more than others. One of the keys is the bed is for sleeping only, and I had to throw in everyone's an adult and maybe one other thing, but the bed is for sleeping, okay? It's not for reading, and I will put a caveat. I don't care if you read 5-10 minutes of a book right before you fall asleep in bed, but it's not for sitting there and going through 300 pages of the novel you love, sit there reading for an hour. It's not for eating in bed. It's not for playing games in bed. It's not watching TV in bed. It's not, doing whatever else. The bed is for sleeping only. The problem we have is we are very trainable. Any of you that have had kids, remember you wanted to train your kid. 7 o'clock on a school night, you go to bed, right? And that's what you wanted was, your child to go to bed at 7 o'clock and fall asleep or whatever it was. We train ourselves all the time. So we're kind of like dogs. We can train ourselves. And it doesn't take doing something very long to make it a habit, a behavior. It can, you can develop a behavior by doing something as little as just 3 or 4 times. But we develop bad sleep habits all the time. And one of those is laying in bed or doing other things in bed. You want your body to think that when it gets in bed, it's sleep time. Because your body will learn that getting in bed is watching TV time. Or your body will learn that getting in bed is reading a book time, such that one night you don't want to read that book for an hour and you get in bed, guess what's going to happen? You're going to lay there awake because your body's going, this is my book reading time. And the body will actually will resist going to sleep because it wants to read a book. And so you've got to train your body to recognize that bedtime or the bed is for sleeping, okay? And then you get in that bed, lights out, your body's thinking sleep time. And also one of the issues is comes up certainly for someone who has insomnia is there's always this talk about going to bed at the same time. People always say, oh, have a set bedtime. I'll tell you what, that actually is not necessarily true because if your body doesn't want to go to sleep at 9 o'clock and you get in bed every night at 9 o'clock, I see people all the time. I get in bed every night at 9 o'clock. What time do you fall asleep? 11. Well, why are you getting in bed at 9 o'clock? So if your body doesn't want to fall asleep until a later time, why do you have a set bedtime that you get in bed all the time, okay? What you really want to have, especially if you have insomnia, is you want to have a set wake time. You want your body to wake up. You want to get up every day at the same time. And I'm talking weekends too. And that's hard. It's hard because people want to sleep in on the weekends. But you want to have a set wake time, whatever it is, 8 o'clock, 6 o'clock, I tell folks, I don't care. And what you want to do is you want to stay up the whole day and let your body then tell you when it's time to get in bed, okay? And that actually takes me right into the next one. Only get in bed when you're about to fall asleep. Don't get in bed because it's 9 o'clock. Don't get in bed because the news is over. Get in bed when your body tells you you're about to fall asleep. And if you do that, if you set a wake time and let your body dictate your go to sleep time, you can take a week or two, but it can be pretty painful too, and some people have bad insomnia. But it actually will make an established sleep pattern for you. You'll actually get up at the same time, and then over a period of time, and again, it can take a couple weeks or even more. One night you may go to bed at 9, the next night it may be 2 a.m. because you're just your body's trying to figure it all out. But after a couple weeks, you usually will get yourself into a sleep time range, usually of about an hour to an hour and a half. So if I'm up every night, up every morning at 8, and my body's telling me at 10 o'clock, I can't stay up anymore, I'm going to develop that kind of in bed time. Okay? This is probably one of the things that sounds most like voodoo to people who come see me. They're just kind of like, oh, this is all voodoo, what are you talking about? And this is what I have to convince them, though, is how important it is to have a set wake time. And let your body dictate bedtime. Because what have we been told from the time we were 2 years old? You got to go to bed at the same time every night. That's not true. What you really want to do is get up at the same time every day and let your body, based on how sleepy you are, dictate your bedtime. Now, that can be hard, especially if you have kind of all over the place bedtimes initially, because you're trying to figure out, when do I turn that TV off and stop having that shot of whiskey? So sometimes you got to do a little, rough justice, as Judge Marilyn Millian says, on the People's Court. And so sometimes you got to kind of eyeball that. But if you're someone who lays in bed with insomnia, the best thing you can do for yourself is set a wake time, and then let your body tell you when you're just, I gotta get in bed. I can't keep my eyes open. Okay? Because guess what? If your body's not sleepy and ready to go to sleep, you get in bed at 9. You're just gonna lay there. And I see a lot of insomnia patients where that's exactly what they do. And I'm like, well, maybe you don't need 10 hours of sleep. Maybe you should go to bed at 11. And you'd be amazed how many of them that works. But if you do have insomnia, the key is to set wake time and only get in bed. I'm going to have a lot of time for questions when you're ready to fall asleep. This is wow, I really messed that one. 10th day of Christmas, my sleep doc said to me, this is old Chinese proverb. No, not really, but the longer you lay in bed awake, guess what? The longer you're going to lay in bed awake. Okay? Because you get in bed, and you may have been sleepy, but you've trained your body to lay in bed awake. Remember I talked about that? You don't want to train your body to lay in bed awake, but you've trained your body. So you're sleepy and you hop in bed and you wake right up. And guess what? You lay there. And you lay there and you start ruminating about things, which I'll get into. So now you're thinking about, what do I got to do tomorrow? I got to get that Christmas present. I mean, you're just going. And you lay there. And you lay there 10 minutes, and pretty soon your 10 is 30, and then 30 is 2 hours, and guess what? You're still laying. The longer you lay in bed, the more your brain actually will turn on to try to stay awake and fill empty time. So, I was about to say something, totally forgot.
So if you're awake, you should get up.
I'm getting to that. That's the answer. I wasn't getting there yet. What was I going to say? Anyways, you don't want to lay in bed awake, because basically the longer you lay in bed awake, the longer you will lay in bed, because you'll start your mind. Even my problem is I think about how much I have to go to sleep. How many people do? oh, I got a big day tomorrow, I gotta get up, I gotta go to sleep. Well, guess what? Now you're so revved up thinking about going to sleep. But the issue is, the other issue is that when you lay there awake, as I kind of mentioned before, you train your body to think that's normal behavior. And it doesn't take, I see a lot of people where something happened, maybe a relative passed away or something, and so they went through a period of like a month or two where they just really just couldn't fall asleep. They were having insomnia, which is normal, when something happens. But they got in the habit of just laying there awake. And so now, literally, I saw a gentleman, 4 years later, after his wife had passed, he comes to see me. And he goes, ever since then, I lay in bed for 3 hours awake. And we went through a lot of this. But the point being is that if you train your body to think it's okay to lay in bed awake, guess what it's going to do? It's going to lay in bed awake. So just like I said earlier, is that if you train your body to watch TV in bed, when you get in bed, your body's like, turn on TV or whatever it is. If you're someone who just lays in bed awake, worrying or thinking or whatever, guess what? Your body thinks that's normal behavior. When I get in bed, I wake up and sit here. And that's what it will do until you change that behavior, change that. So the longer you lay in bed awake, guess what? The longer you are going to lay in bed awake. And like I said, the worst is when you start thinking about, you got to go to sleep. Oh, I got to go to sleep. You never go to sleep when you think about going to sleep. Things always work out, so stop all that worry. And I know that's not true always, but I did put at least don't worry in bed. So kind of going back to the part where when you get in bed, you're laying there and your mind wants to fill some time, and that's when people start worrying or thinking about things. I tell folks, I'm a worrier. I'm a type A. I used to worry about everything, okay? I'm much more mellow now, but in the day. But the thing is, if you want to worry, that's great. Do it in a chair, okay? Do it in a different room. Because if you're going to, if you are someone who just at the end of the day feels that need to run through everything that happened that day and what you're going to do tomorrow and such, I know those people. I've been to the support group for it. If you're one of those folks, that's fine. Take the end of the day and say, okay, I've turned off the TV. I got to get 30 minutes of TV off. So what do? Well, let me sit in the chair here and start, running through the things that I would normally do while I'm laying in bed. Thinking about what I got to do tomorrow, what happened today, all that other stuff. If you do it in bed, you're just going to impact your ability to fall asleep. So if you need to worry, do it in a chair, okay? Do it in a different room. Do it in that 30-minute break I want you to have. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to get in bed, have your body wake up because it's so used to doing that, and then start worrying, and then you lay there worrying, okay? Does that make sense? People again look at me like that one. When I tell them that, they're just like, oh, that's voodoo. I can't worry sitting in a chair. Kid you not. That's what they'll say to me. I can't worry sitting in a chair. I have to be laying in bed. Okay. But if we can break that, I said, just like we trained you to worry in bed, I bet you can train yourself to worry sitting in the chair. So, worry. We're at the end of the 12th day of Christmas, and those are my drummers drumming. And I say, play a game of up, down with me, and read the phone book. People think the phone book is a joke. It's not. The key is that when you're dealing with insomnia, 1, you want to have that set wake time. 2, you don't want to get in bed until your body is like, oh man, I can't keep my eyes open, okay? That's part 1. Part 2 is that if you've trained your body to lie awake in bed for whatever reason, because it wants to read, because it wants to watch TV, because you want to worry, that's a behavior that will happen. You'll get in bed and wake wide awake. Your eyes are closed, you're falling asleep, sitting out in the living room, you go to the bedroom, you get in bed, you wake wide up. The key is, as was said before, you cannot lay in bed awake. Because if you lay in bed awake, what happens? The more you lay in bed awake, the more you lay in bed awake, okay? You've got to get up. You give it 10, 15 minutes. Don't clock watch, because that's really bad for you. But hey, I've been here a little while. Maybe it's 8 minutes, maybe it's 20 minutes, I don't know. But on average, you give it 8 to 10 minutes. You get out of bed. What you don't do, which I see a lot of, is you don't get out of bed and turn on the TV or check your Facebook, okay? Because immediately you've hit the old electronic button and turned everything on. Get out of bed, sit in the chair, dim light, because again, light's important in all this. Find the most boring thing you can possibly read. Phone book, I kid you not yellow pages, white pages. Yellow pages are too interesting. There are people who love the yellow pages, so white pages. I know everybody's like, what, he's a nut, but I'm like, I'm telling you, this technique of behavioral modification has been the only thing proven to improve insomnia. Not medicines, not Ambien like everybody likes to give out. I hate Ambien, by the way. I don't prescribe sleep medicines probably once a week. And it certainly is not Ambien, which is one of the worst drugs known to man. So if you're an Ambien rep, that's why you don't come visit me and I don't know you, because Ambien's a terrible drug. Has a lot of withdrawal issues and stuff, which I won't get into. Get out of bed, sit in the chair, get that phone book out. Read it softly out loud. This is a key point. People will tell you, yeah, you don't lay in bed, get out of bed, get out and read something boring. What they don't tell you to do is read it out loud. Because you gotta break two things. You gotta break two cycles. One cycle is that laying in bed awake, that behavior of just laying there. Get yourself out of bed, that breaks that cycle. That starts to break that cycle. But if you just kind of look at something silently, typically you're still going to have those thoughts running in your head that you had when you were laying. By reading out loud, you actually have to concentrate enough to actually break that cycle, whatever's going on in your brain. Joe Smith, 319. Don't read the addresses, just the numbers. Joe Smith, it's been proven. This is the best part. 319, blah, 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 Bill Smith. There's a Bill Smith, I don't know your number. Bill Smith. You do that for about 5 minutes, and guess what? You're going to be like, I've had enough. You go get back in bed. If you have trained your body to think that being in bed is time to be awake and be a time to worry sick, guess what's going to happen when you go get back in bed? You're going to wake right back up. That's what's going to happen, I'm telling you. So guess what? You give it another 10, 15 minutes. And if it's, if you're not asleep, you get up. Where'd I leave off? Okay, Bill. Okay. I always tell folks, pick a letter that interests you to start. Bill, I did Bill. William, and you do it again. And then same cycle. You repeat that. People with bad insomnia will do that 5, 6 times before they fall asleep. Here's the problem. It is incredibly hard work. And I can't tell you how much I emphasize how hard work this is to my patients, but also to you guys. Especially that second time. Most people are pretty good about getting up the first time. Even I'd get up the first time pretty easy. But the second time, because you're tired. You've been kind of through this. You're pretty sleepy and tired. And you got your pillow where you want it, you got your covers where you want it, and you're in the, I'm so close. 2 more minutes, obviously. 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. And you sit there, you feel, because you're on the edge. You know it's going to happen. And 2 becomes 4, becomes 10, becomes 20, becomes an hour. So the hard part is making yourself get up again. It really is. I can't emphasize how hard of work this is. It's hard to make yourself get up out of bed, especially if your apartment's cold or your house is cold. But you got to get up and do it again. You got to get up and do it again. When I have people that have very bad insomnia, they may do this for weeks to months. And the goal is that instead of getting up 5 times during the night, maybe now they only get up 4 times, and then they get up 3 times, and then they only get up 2 times. You wake up in the middle of the night, you can't fall asleep, guess what? 10, 15 minutes, you get up in the middle of the night, go get that phone book. Okay, it's the same thing. It's hard work. I will tell you, I have my patients see me very frequently because a lot of what I do when I prescribe this behavioral change stuff is a lot of it is cheerleading. I mean, I have to encourage them and encourage them and encourage them. But it does work. Like I said, if you go see your primary doctors, and nothing against saying primary doctors, but a lot of times they're like, you can't sleep, you have insomnia, here, take some Ambien. That's not the answer. That fixes the symptom, but it isn't fixing the problem, the insomnia problem. So behavioral modification is, like I said, the only thing that's ever been proven to work in chronic insomnia, in the long term. So it's hard work. We laugh about it. Phone book, getting up, you're crazy, I'll never do that. I have patients who tell me up front they'll never do that. My last story before I'm done, we'll do questions, is I was actually, right after I retired, I took a job in Tyler, Texas for a while, doing sleep, did it for several months to fill in for somebody. And I had a lady come to see me. She hated everybody, okay? I mean, you know, not to offend anyone, but there's sometimes people walk in and you just know they hate everybody, okay? She hated me. Never said a word to her, and I knew she hated me. And she had insomnia for 20 to 30 years. Had been on every medication you can imagine, had tried everything, you know, this, that, and the other thing. And I asked her if anybody had ever had her do this. And she goes, yeah, I did that a while ago, it didn't work. And I said, well, were you reading out loud? No, I wasn't reading out loud. But she got really angry because I suggested we try this. And I'm usually not rude to my patients. I actually kind of felt bad. I said this to her afterwards, but she hated me. And I kind of went through this whole thing and I said, you know what, this will work if you stick with it. It may take weeks to months because you've had insomnia so long, it takes you a long time to get here, it takes you a long time to get out of here. And she got very angry, and I said, well, obviously you don't want to get better. That's what I said to her. And I actually feel bad to this day about that because that's not the way I am and the way I usually say it when I say it. But I was frustrated. And I said, well, obviously you don't want to get better. And so she left in a huff, all angry, all this and that. 2 weeks later, I get a call, you know, the nurse says, hey, Mrs. So-and-so called. And I'm like, oh, yeah? You know, what's going on? She goes, well, she hates you and doesn't want to talk to you. And I said, okay, what else? She goes, but she did tell me that. She says she went home and tried this out of spite because she wanted to prove you wrong. That this would never work for her. And after 2 weeks, she says she has never slept better in her life. Oh. She wouldn't tell me that. But she hated me still. That's the exception. You know how you get the little print at the bottom of an ad, you know, results not typical? 2 weeks is really a quick resolution. Most people who are gonna, you know, who really work at it, they actually do better though within just a couple of weeks, you know, 3, 4, or 6 weeks, they usually notice some significant improvement. But it's hard work. I mean, that's the point, it is hard. You know, I have people come in, they did it, you know, for a couple of weeks, and they come back, oh, I haven't been doing it this week. And, you know, it's, well, okay, you know, we take 2 steps up, 1 step back, that's fine. We just keep trying, and keep trying, and keep trying. If you ever hear me talk about sleep apnea and wearing CPAP, it's the same thing. You know what? It's not natural to have a mask on your face. If God wanted me to have a mask on his face, he would have made me with a mask on his face. It's about keep trying, just put it on, put it on, put it on. So insomnia is about the same way. So to summarize, kind of gave you some kind of tips on sleep hygiene, some things that we can do. The big one is electronics. I mean, electronics is huge. And then some insomnia, because a lot of people have insomnia and they just, you know, they kind of figure out, hey, this is the way I am. I don't sleep well. And so maybe some tips to help you. So I hope we had some fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't think I have anything after that. Nope. Yeah, that's it. Just questions. Nan, go ahead.
Do you have anything to say about restless leg syndrome?
Yeah, well, I could do a whole talk for you on restless legs. So restless leg syndrome can disturb, you know, the thing about restless leg syndrome is that it's overdiagnosed. I'll tell you, a lot of people call something restless legs when it's not. Restless legs tends to worsen in the evening, so it impacts people's ability to go to sleep. And the traditional description of restless legs is it feels like ants are crawling all over you. And so these are folks that you see that are doing this, and they can't go to a movie because, whoops, I knocked it off. They can't go to a movie because, you know, they can't get their legs comfortable. That's the classic description of restless legs. It's often associated with iron deficiency. So one of the things I do, I don't even bother checking iron anymore. I just put people on iron if they come to me for restless legs. And that often alone can help, but if not, there are medications that certainly can help. You aren't going to fall asleep well if you've got bad restless legs. You know, you can do all this up, down, all you want, read the entire phone book twice. But if you've got bad restless legs, it's going to be hard for you to fall asleep. So that should you should see somebody and get that treated. I'm not saying you do, but that's restless legs. There's also an actual sleep disorder called periodic limb movements, which is a movement disorder during sleep. It's a kicking or jerking motion, 90% of the time legs. It's different than restless legs. People think they're the same. And that will disturb your sleep tremendously if you have that as well. But the medicines we use are often the same. So does that answer any of your question about restless legs?
Did you roll off a couple of medicines?
So the two that are used most commonly, one is called ropinirole, R-O-P-I-N-I-R-O-L-E, Ropenetrol, and it goes by the trade name Requip, R-E-Q-U-I-P, if anybody's heard of that.
I take it.
What's that?
I take it.
Okay, and then, so if it doesn't work, and, you know, if you titrate it up and it doesn't work, well, you can have good success using another one, which is called Pramipexole. P-R-A-M-I-P-E-X-O-L-E, and it goes by Mirapex, as its trade name. Those are kind of the first two lines, because you know, one doesn't work, doesn't mean the other one won't. If you have iron deficiency, it doesn't matter what you take. It isn't, you're not gonna get better. So if you haven't, your doctor hasn't checked iron panel, that's reasonable, starting iron. I didn't say, I just put people on iron. I don't even mess around often with the iron panel. But I could give you 18,000 medicines, but if you have iron deficiency, you're not gonna get one. Okay. Third line is actually clonazepam, which is a kind of a Valium drug. You know, that's extreme if you get there.
What did you say?
Clonazepam. So it's a Valium derivative. That's, in the day, it was first line before these other ones were kind of developed. But that's really the medications. You know, I try Mirapex if you haven't tried it before. Other questions?
Rotating shifts. So
Yeah, shift work disorder. So basically, everyone thinks if you work on rotating shift, you have shift work disorder. It's actually only probably about 12% of people, you know, studies have shift work disorder. I see a lot of it. I'm certainly happy to see people. It's one of those where you kind of have to see everybody individually and get their own individual story in order to really come up with a plan. In general, for shift work disorder, the way you approach it is, you know, if I have to use medicines to get somebody, so if you have shift work and you can't fall asleep, and we've tried all this stuff, and you can't fall asleep, that is the one situation where I actually will use, or if you didn't hear that, you should this, or something similar to in shift work disorder. Most people with shift work can fall asleep, so they don't have shift work disorder. They may not get enough sleep. And so that's where we build in what's called an anchor period. I usually try to anchor people from 9 to 3, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., get them 6 hours, and then I usually have them do a 1 to 2 hour nap in the evening before they go to work. That usually gets them about 8 hours. That usually works really well for shift workers who work night shifts, say, and we can adjust it based on their time. The problem you have is the sleep apnea I haven't talked about. Lots of people have sleep apnea and don't know it. If you're getting 8 hours of sleep and have sleep apnea, you're still not going to feel rested. So you always have to rule out other things that may be impacting, you know, sleep as well.
typically, if you're on rotating shifts, you'll sleep. Like when you're on, goes from days to nights,
Yeah,
2, 3, 4 hours, and then you're awake.
yep, yeah, that's part of the problem. That's sometimes we'll use medicines in that case. I mean, so it depends on the individual situation, how I approach that. Rotating shifts are almost harder than pure night to pure day. That mid shift actually is probably the hardest one to actually get set for people. So the other thing is I tell that folks is that the quicker you rotate, the harder it is. So if you're on something if you have the option to do 6 weeks rotations, I would do that any day over 2 weeks.
We do 1 week.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, no offense, you're screwed. I mean, I can try to help you if you want to come see me, but you know, it's difficult with 1 week rotation. Yes, ma'am.
If you wake up and you have to go to the bathroom.
Yes.
And you go back to bed and you can't go to sleep, you get up and go talk to the phone book?
You get up and you go and talk to the phone book, and I would start, having the initials EEE, I prefer the E's. So you get up and find your preference.
Okay.
Exact same thing, yes. Yes, sir, I saw you had your hand earlier.
Opinions on naps after lunch.
Naps after lunch. So a nap after lunch actually, if you have a good sleep pattern established, so you don't have bad insomnia, and we're not trying to make you stay up so you're tired to fall asleep in the evening, a nap after lunch can be part of a normal day sleep cycle just fine. But you don't want to do that until your sleep cycle is established. So if you have insomnia, and I've seen you and I've told you you got to wake up and stay up, no naps. We may put one in later once we get your sleep cycle set and you get things better. All in all, naps are not a bad thing. It's just, you know, if you can get a nap and it's part of your lifestyle and it fits in and it doesn't cause you to stay up and, you know, have insomnia and stuff, nothing wrong with a nap. Now, power naps are better. 20, 30 minutes max. They actually can be very restorative. You tend to wake up quickly. Once you get beyond that, start pushing an hour, something called sleep inertia kicks in. And what that really is, what inertia is, you know, if You know, it says if you start something in motion, it just keeps going. You know, you throw a rock in space, it just keeps going. You get pushing an hour, now your body's thinking, hey, we're in for the long haul. And so it actually kind of gets into this pattern of sleep, and then when you wake up, you may feel more tired. Because you may wake up and your body's like, hey, you know, I was in for, 6-7 hours here, what's going on? So 20 to 30-minute naps are best. Yes, sir.
How do you know when you're getting enough sleep? I mean,
So there's a couple ways. One, if you are like falling asleep while you're talking, to your spouse or something, you're probably not getting enough sleep.
You're not getting enough sleep.
A lot of people kind of know.
not true.
Yeah.
That is true.
A lot of people kind of know. There actually is a screening tool out there called the Epworth Sleepiness Score. It was developed at Stanford. You actually fill it out. What is the likelihood I would doze off if? And it gives you options. One of them is talking to your spouse. What is the chances you would doze off? And you actually put a numerical number in there, and then we add it up.
What's that called?
The Epworth Sleep, EPWORTH, Epworth Sleepiness Scale. And basically it kind of gives us an idea of how sleepy you are. And it's subjective. I mean, it's not like, 100%, it's subjective. But what I use it for is if I see you and you have a high score and I've done a bunch of stuff and you're sleeping better and your score is continuously getting better, that tells me we're moving in the right direction. But that's the big, excuse me, people usually feel it when they're actually not getting enough sleep. Way in the back, yes ma'am.
When you can't get out of bed in the morning, is that a symptom of a sleep disorder or just laziness?
So meaning you physically are paralyzed and can't get out of bed, or you're just like, oh my God, the alarm just went off.
It's just so hard to wake up.
Yeah, that's usually because you're sleep deprived, chronically. We all get sleep deprived. Really, you'd be amazed if I told you based on your age what your target sleep is. As a society, we're sleep deprived. In the short term, we try to catch up. The body's like a credit card. Cha-ching, you owe me for Monday. Cha-ching, you owe me an hour for Tuesday. And people will try to get that back on the weekends. But you actually can become chronically sleep deprived. And that's when you just start to feel run down all the time. That kind of can't get out of bed in the morning. Boy, I slept 10 hours. Why am I still tired? A lot of times that's from chronic sleep deprivation. And your body wants to just try to keep getting more and more sleep. The other issue that always plays in this is, I didn't get a lot into sleep disruption. You can sleep 12 hours a day, but if you're not getting good quality sleep, you're not going to feel rested. And that's where things like sleep apnea, chronic pain, that's where all that nighttime kicking disorder I talked about, that's where all that kicks in. People who come to see me like, I'm sleeping 10 hours a night, but what the heck? Then I'm looking for sleep disruptors because you have to get good quality sleep to feel rested. Yes, ma'am.
What about waking up all the time?
Yeah.
I fall asleep
But you wake up a lot?
a lot.
You fall back asleep quickly or not?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
I never get out of bed and read the phone.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's very interesting.
I'm not, I lay there and I think, I'm awake. I can open my eyes right
But
now.
will you fall back asleep though? Seriously, do you fall back to sleep quickly or not?
I do. And I have this Fitbit that
Yeah.
records your sleep,
Yeah,
and I'm awake. And I know
Yeah.
I'm awake.
Yeah.
Hour and a half every single night.
yeah. I'll allude to my opinion on the Fitbit sleep thing.
Don't believe it then?
Don't believe it.
Okay, well, then I'm
Um,
still awake.
Yeah, because all it's doing is it's just an activity monitor and it's basically saying, hey, I'm not moving, so you must be asleep. Well, I could sit there and just say, I'm not going to move for an hour and make you think I'm sleeping. Not that you would. But the issue is this, is that people who wake up a lot and then sometimes they can't go back to sleep, but people who tend to wake up frequently during the night, they often have a sleep disruptor. They either have the kicking disorder, nighttime kicking disorder, or they have sleep apnea, or they have chronic pain that isn't controlled. There's people who do that kind of, all the time, but I can fall back asleep. Those people tend to have a sleep disruptor. And so that would be something I'd have to see and talk to you about. So, by the way, I take self-referrals, so if you ever do want to see me, just call our clinic and make an appointment. Yeah.
Where it be the same as you said, take up your electronics at the electronic?
Well, no, it doesn't. If you're looking, the Fitbits don't really have a screen. It's the flashing lights of the screen that get you. So it's not just that it's electronic. It's the flashing. So these new phones, smartphones, anything that has a screen. An Apple Watch actually could potentially affect your sleep. because it has little icons on it that look like, your phone screen. A Fitbit, to my knowledge, I don't have one. The new ones, basically just, you don't see anything on them unless you push a button or something.
Well, there is
Is
a
there?
light underneath, but I don't know if it's on constant.
Yeah, and I don't think that affects your sleep. I just don't believe that I can talk for 10 minutes on why I don't believe in Fitbits, but I could.
I just do it to avoid that, so.
Yes, ma'am.
So you said to say your wake time every morning, and I get up at 5 for work.
Yeah.
But on the days that I don't have to do that, which are rare.
Yeah.
But I get up and go to the bathroom, and I wanna go back to sleep for a
Yeah.
couple hours, but that's too late probably to do the phone book thing, because it's light out.
Yeah,
Getting
yeah.
light.
Yeah, it's probably too late. The problem is that for those of us who got up at the same time for years and years, it's a learned behavior. Just like you learn to lay in bed awake, it's a learned behavior to get up at 5 o'clock every morning. And so what happens is that if you could sleep in, and again, if you don't have insomnia, feel free to sleep in on the weekends. You don't have to have a set wake time unless you have trouble falling asleep. So if you're somebody who says, yeah, I fall asleep, I sleep fine, I wake up in the morning, sleep in. But it is a learned behavior at 5 a.m.
Although I still set my alarm.
Yeah.
Get up.
So if you're doing that though, let your body dictate your sleep time, because ultimately that will kind of regulate itself to how much sleep you need. Everybody needs a set amount of sleep, and it's determined by your age, gives you a range, but individually, your body's need is individual. It could be 7 hours, 32 minutes, and 49 seconds. Everybody's is individual. Yes, ma'am?
Thoughts on melatonin?
I love melatonin. Melatonin is great. Melatonin is natural. It doesn't have really any particular bad side effects to it. Melatonin is what your body makes and releases to make you sleep. The thing about melatonin is that in folks that I'm trying it on, it probably works in about 60 to 70% of people. And in the other 30%, it just doesn't seem to have an effect. And that's kind of what you'll read if you did research. There's kind of that group, significant number of group, who has no effect. When you take melatonin to help you fall asleep, you're basically just supplementing what your brain is making anyways. And just as far as dosing, it comes in like 1, 3s, 5s, and 10s. I usually tell people start with a 3. And then if you need to, if you hit 20, you're not going to get any more benefit if you go higher than that. So 20 is kind of max. The thing about melatonin is it's not like a sleep med where you take it, you're waiting for the hammer to fall, boom, I'm out. It is very subtle. The effect of melatonin in most people is a very subtle thing. And you can stay up through it very easily. So if you're watching TV, you're going to totally miss that melatonin effect. I'll tell you right now. You'll just stay all right up through it. Because unlike these sleep meds that hit you like a tidal wave, a hammer on the head, it's very gradual, kind of a little gentle wave of feeling kind of sleepy. I'm feeling kind of sleepy. So you have to be prepared to get in bed when you feel that. And so you also have to be in tune waiting for it. So like I said, if you're watching TV or engaged in something, you'll miss it. Melatonin, I use it a lot, especially with shift workers to help them. I'll use it a lot for people who have delayed sleep phases to shift them back. I use it in insomnia, if I need to. A lot of times with insomnia, what happens is they'll have their set wake time, say 8 o'clock, but they're going to bed at 2. And then what I do though is I can use melatonin to slowly, after we set their cycle, we can, compress it. It's actually called compressing the cycle. I use melatonin to actually move them back so they actually end up getting adequate hours to slowly move their sleep time earlier. So I don't know if that answered your question on melatonin.
Is the average 3 milligrams or more?
That's what I say start at. It's an individual thing. I mean, some people 1 is fine. But I have people coming in, I'm taking 50 milligrams of melatonin. I'm like, well,
Can you take it long term?
Yeah, there's really been no studies that have shown that melatonin long term has any particular issues. That's interesting is melatonin is short acting. All it does is stimulate the cycle to kind of get your brain going to sleep. But there is, I got this sample in the mail of long acting melatonin. They give me like 2 pills, like that's going to help me to try. But there may be a longer acting form because sometimes with melatonin it'll get you to sleep and then you'll wake up after it's worn off. That sometimes happens. We don't have too much time left. Yes, sir.
I'm hearing about people taking a Benadryl to go to bed.
Yeah, so Benadryl will make you sleepy. The problem with Benadryl has actually been long-term use of Benadryl is associated with Alzheimer's and dementia. So you definitely don't want to be taking Benadryl long-term. The other thing with Benadryl is that it will dry you out significantly. So it'll help your allergies, but it will dry you out significantly. And it also can, in some men, it can make it difficult for them to urinate, and actually cause urinary retention. If you have glaucoma, you certainly shouldn't take Benadryl as well. So Benadryl was kind of like every over-the-counter sleep aid you buy has Benadryl or something similar. I'm telling you, don't take it, okay? Because, like I said, it's pretty definitive now. There's an association with long-term Benadryl use and dementia.
What about Unisom?
I can't remember what's in Unisom. Most of them it's Benadryl or something similar. I don't know Unisom specifically. Because I kind of tell people I don't want them taking any of those. That's one of the deals when people come see me. One of the things we're looking at initially is getting them off that stuff. Okay? Because that's not the answer in the long term. So like I said, I love this stuff. Feel free to come see me. I'll bedazzle you with stories of going all over the world, meeting interesting people and trying to prevent them from killing each other. But I really appreciate the turnout. This is super, and I appreciate all the great questions and everybody coming. So thank you very much.
Thank you again, everybody, for coming. We appreciate it. Those evaluation forms, please leave them, and any suggestions for future programming you'd like us to consider. We appreciate that too. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, and thanks again for coming. Bye.
And remember, I shamelessly plug diamonds. So for someone who's not proficient, maybe they'll come by and come something in. Someone who's not iron deficient. If they're iron deficient, it depends on how severe it is. And sometimes I'll prescribe a prescription. I don't practice at all. I never practice. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Lois. How are
Is this his first? Retired now?
All retired, almost.
One thing we go through.
But we don't wanna do that anymore.